Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm starting off my new Midnight Terrors marathon for you guys. The first video I'll be reacting to is 4 Disturbing True Food Delivery Horror Stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Alright, everybody, here we go.
It had been a ridiculously busy night. Non-stop deliveries. Barely any time to breathe, let alone take a bathroom break.
Okay.
On top of that, we were in the middle of a brutal heat wave, so I'd been downing water like crazy.
Oh, I bet. It sounds like a job with a lot of hassles. But if somebody places a food order, you got to go get it and drop it off, get paid your tip, and then go home. But yeah, that's one job I do not want to take up is picking up other people's food and dropping it off.
Naturally, at the worst possible time, the need to pee hit me hard. Like 1 second I was fine, and the next it was an emergency. Thankfully, I was pulling up to my next stop, so I figured I'd just drop off the pizza and find somewhere to go afterward. Right away, something felt off about the house. It was completely dark. No porch light, no TV glow, nothing. The only streetlight nearby was busted, making everything feel even more eerie. This was a college town, and most of the students were gone for the summer. But someone had to be home because, well, they ordered a pizza. Still, I didn't want to just walk up to a dark house and knock, so I called the number on the order. The person answered, breathless, like they'd been running. They quickly said, "Yeah?" in a way that caught me off guard. I told them I was out front, but it didn't look like anyone was home. That's when they said, "Yeah, I'm not home." Frustrated, I told them I'd have to cancel the order since they were supposed to pay in cash. But then the voice on the other end, sounding way younger and way more desperate, pleaded with me to wait. She was apparently sprinting home after losing track of time at work and was just a few minutes away. Feeling bad, I agreed to wait, but that didn't solve my more pressing issue. I still had to pee. The area was too open, no good hiding spots, and I'd just thrown out my empty water bottle at the last stop. That's when I made a decision I'll regret forever. The house was dark, the streetlight was out, and no one was around. So I figured, why not just go behind one of the bushes in front of the house? It seemed like the perfect plan at the time.
I mean, hey, you gotta go, you gotta go. Where else are you gonna go pee? I mean, if there was like a wood line near the road, I'd be peeing towards that way, but I'll make sure no bugs or anything jumps on me. But yeah, I'll be mad too if somebody ordered food and you get there and they're not home when they're supposed to be.
I hurried over, unzipped, and let it flow. But immediately, something felt wrong. The sound wasn't right, more like I was hitting something solid rather than leaves. Just as I was starting to panic, I heard a deep voice yell, "What the fuck?" And before I could even react, a man came bursting out of the bushes. He pushed past me, spitting and brushing himself off. Because yeah, I had absolutely just peed on him. I stood there in shock as he bolted down the street, disappearing into the darkness. It took a second for my brain to catch up, but when it did, the realization hit me like a truck. A man had been hiding in those bushes, right in front of a young woman's house, at night. And judging by the hoodie he was wearing in the sweltering heat, he wasn't there for anything good. Still trying to process what just happened, I did something stupid. I stepped closer to the bushes and shined my phone's flashlight into the darkness. That's when I saw it, a small drawstring bag tucked away in the leaves. My hands were shaking as I reached down and pulled it open. Inside was a knife, a roll of duct tape, and a bottle of pills. My body went cold. That was it. No more second guessing. No more trying to rationalize it. I ran back to my car, jumped in, and sped off without looking back. My heart was pounding, my hands gripping the wheel so tight they hurt. I didn't stop until I was far enough away to think clearly, pulling into a 24-hour drugstore parking lot. That's when I finally called the cops. I told them everything as best as I could, but I was such a mess that I don't think I was making much sense. As I was talking, the girl called me, asking where I was because she had just arrived at the house. That was when a new fear hit me. What if she wasn't real? What if this was all some elaborate setup? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that was unlikely. If anything, she was in serious danger. I muted the 911 call and sped back toward her house, whispering every curse word I knew under my breath. When I got there, I saw her walking up and down the street, looking for my car. I flashed my brights and waved her over. She came right up, all smiles, thinking I was just being weird about handing her the pizza. That's when I blurted out, "There was a man in your bushes. I'm on the phone with the police. Get in the car now." Her face changed instantly. Without a single question, she jumped in. Turns out, she knew exactly who it was. She had an abusive ex-boyfriend, and from my description, she was sure it was him. The cops arrived not long after and took over from there. She later called to thank me, and even tried to leave a huge tip, but my manager made sure she got all the free pizza she wanted instead. I don't talk about this much, but it completely changed the way I see the world. I don't think I'll ever shake that feeling of realizing just how close I was to something truly horrific.
Yeah, that would be scary that you're went to go pee and a man just so happens to be hiding in the area that you're peeing at. But hey, you were able to see somebody hiding in the bushes and he won't up to no good. And he did the right thing in calling the cops to let them know and get that girl away from her house before that guy decided to attack her. Man, if he did not pee in that bush, he probably wouldn't have known there was somebody hiding in them, waiting until that girl came home and either kill her or kidnap her. And it'll probably end up being a missing persons case. Thank God she's all right. But man, that is really disturbing.
I use Uber Eats all the time, especially since my car has been acting up and I've gotten pretty comfortable relying on delivery services. But after this, yeah, I think I'm done with them for a while. So the other day, around 1 p.m., I had just finished a bunch of cleaning and decided to order some lunch. I placed my order, found something to watch, and settled in while I waited for the food to arrive. A few minutes later, a driver got assigned, and I noticed a couple of things right away. The guy's name was Anthony. He was supposedly delivering on a bike, but he had no profile picture and no previous deliveries. That seemed a little odd. But
Yeah, that's fishy. Because if you're working for a food delivery company like DoorDash or Uber Eats, you should have had a picture taken and put on there as the profile person knows who's coming to bring your food. And if they're working there for a long time, they should have had more delivery records of them. So my gut is telling me that this person just signed on and they're probably not only going to deliver the food, but try to break in the house and steal something. You just don't know what's going to happen. But I don't want to jump in any conclusions, so let's just continue on and see what happens next.
I just assumed he was new to the app. In fact, I even thought it was kind of funny. Like, oh wow, I guess I'm this guy's first ever customer. But then, 30 minutes passed and the driver hadn't moved. At first, I figured maybe the app was glitching or the driver got stuck somewhere. I tried refreshing the app, but he was still in the exact same spot. That's when I contacted Uber support through the chat option to ask what was going on. They tried reaching out to him but got no response, so they reassigned my order to a new driver. Annoying, but whatever. I just wanted my food. Here's where things started getting weird. The new driver assigned to me was in the exact same spot as the first guy. No profile picture, no delivery history, also on a bike. And this time, their name was Lori. I remember staring at my phone like, okay, that's kind of strange. But again, I tried not to overthink it. Maybe it was just a coincidence. I gave it another 20 minutes before I messaged the driver myself, just asking, "Hi there, are there any issues with the order?" The app showed that they saw my message, but they didn't reply. At this point, I started feeling a little uneasy. It wasn't just a delay. There was something off about this whole thing. I checked online to see if Uber Eats was having some kind of system issue, but there was nothing. Still, I was mostly just frustrated and hungry, so I contacted support again. They tried to reach out to the driver, also got no response, and apologized for the inconvenience before assigning me yet another driver. And guess what? Same thing. This third driver, Robert, was also on a bike, also had no profile picture, and had no prior deliveries.
I'll be like, what in the hell is going on here? I mean, that is not no coincidence anymore. You have gotten 3 drivers pop up on your Uber Eats app, and they don't have no profile picture or any form earlier deliveries. They're just probably using the app to stake out people to see if they would take the bait and go to their house and break in. And you mean to tell me there ain't no other drivers with a profile picture in the area? That's just dumb. I don't know why they keep assigning them random people that don't have no profile pictures to her. I'll be mad. Right now, this is starting to become a daggum ring around the rosy game right here, which is stupid. I don't know why Uber Eats can't get nobody trustworthy on there to go get her food.
Before I could even process the fact that this was happening again, I suddenly got a message from him that said, "Hello, have her food. What's her phone number?" That immediately set off alarm bells in my head. I replied, "I'm not super comfortable giving my phone number out when you can just message me here." He answered almost instantly, "What's her number? Be there in 10. How old are you?" And that was the moment I realized this wasn't just some weird technical issue. This was something seriously messed up. I immediately went back to Uber support, explained the situation, and asked them to cancel the order. They connected me to their safety team, who assured me that the order had been canceled. I'd get a refund, and they'd be filing a report on the situation. While I was on the phone with them, I started calming down, thinking, okay, that was creepy, but it's over now. But then I heard a voice at my front door. "Miss Metal Gear 4269, I have your food." And the way he said it sent a full-body chill through me. Slow, drawn out, almost sing-songing, like he was playing with me. The Uber safety rep on the phone heard him too, and immediately said, "Wait, is that him? We canceled the order." At this point, I felt frozen. I peeked around the corner just enough to see through my screen door. The main heavy door was open, but the screen door was locked. And standing on my porch was this guy, Robert, with a big grin on his face. The second he saw me holding my phone, his expression completely changed. His smile dropped, and he just stared at me, his eyes dark and furious. Then suddenly, he rushed up to the door and started demanding to know who I was talking to. I told him he needed to leave, that he was making me uncomfortable, but he didn't move. Instead, he got closer, pressing himself against the door, gripping the handle, and pulling at it like he was testing if it was locked. Then he started pounding on the door, harder and harder, his voice rising as he kept telling me to let him in. The woman from Uber's safety team was still on the phone, her voice urgent now, telling me, "Lock your door. Call the police." So that's exactly what I did. I quickly slammed the heavy door shut, locked it, and backed away as he continued yelling. He kicked the door, cursing under his breath, and for a second, I thought he might try to break it down. Then, just as suddenly as it all started, he stopped. He stood there for a second, breathing heavily, then turned and walked back toward the sidewalk. At first, I thought that was the end of it, but when I looked outside again, I noticed something that made my skin crawl all over again. He hadn't left. One of my neighbors, who had heard the commotion, came over a few minutes later to check on me. She told me that after the guy walked away from my house, he didn't just leave. He got into a truck parked up the street. And inside the truck, there was another man sitting in the passenger seat. They didn't drive off. They just sat there, staring at people walking by, acting sketchy as hell. That's when I called the police again. At first, they weren't super helpful, since technically, He hadn't broken in or put his hands on me. But after I explained everything, and with my neighbor backing up my story, they took a full report. She was even able to give them a description of the truck and the second man inside it. I still have no idea what their actual plan was, but the whole thing felt way too calculated to be a coincidence. 3 different drivers, all with the same lack of information, all in the same location, and then one of them shows up at my house even after the order was canceled? That's not just some random creepy dude. That feels like a setup. I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced something like this, but I wanted to share because, honestly, I'm still pretty shaken up. I'll be avoiding delivery apps for a long, long time.
Yep. It seems like it was a setup, and I figured all 3 drivers were working together. The Robert guy that went up to the door and saw that she was on the phone, he probably thought that she was on the phone with cops. But thank God the Uber Eats person told her to lock the doors and call the cops. But I am mad that they said they couldn't do anything because technically he did not break in the house. Bull crap, you could go out there to investigate and they're still in the area in the truck that the neighbor described them to be in. You need to go down there and see what the world they were doing. But I'm thinking that they were just trying to lure victims to the door just so they can like grab them by the mouth and either kidnap them or tie them up just so they can rob the place. You just don't know what these people were thinking about that night. Like this person said, you need to be careful on what apps you use to order food because you never know who would respond to it. It might not even be a legit pickup person.
Back when I was 14, my dad and I lived in this tiny studio apartment on Hollywood Beach, Florida. We didn't have much money, but every other Thursday, we'd treat ourselves to takeout from the same little family run Chinese restaurant a few blocks away. The same delivery guy always brought our food, and over time, we learned he was the son of the woman who owned the place. He seemed totally normal, short, tan, graying hair, glasses, never gave me any weird vibes. Since I was the one who always answered the door, I got used to seeing him. I was polite but never overly chatty, still in that shy teenage phase where small talk felt awkward. Every time, it was the same brief interaction. Hello? Exchange money. Have a nice day. And that was it.
Yeah, I mean, that's all food delivery should be. If you know the person by now, then they know just to drop off your food and get the money and go.
Nothing about him ever made me uncomfortable. At least, not until that one afternoon when he called me out of nowhere. It was a regular school day, and I had been home alone for about an hour when the house phone rang. This was back in 2004 when landlines were still a thing, so I didn't think much of it and just picked up. At first, there was a long pause, like maybe it was a telemarketer or a bad connection. Then, in a thick accent, I heard a stammering voice say, "This is Alan." I had no idea who Alan was. I hesitated and was like, what? Then he clarified, "Your delivery guy. Chinese delivery." That immediately threw me off. Why was my delivery guy calling me? We hadn't even ordered food that night. Before I could ask what was up, he followed up with, "Did you order food?" I told him no, thinking maybe there was some mix-up with an order. There was silence on the line for a second, and then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Are you home alone?" That was the moment my brain shifted from confusion to full-on panic mode. I knew exactly what was happening, and there was no way I was about to let him know that yes, I was home alone. My first instinct was to lie, but then I realized something. He had been delivering food to our place for years. He knew my dad's work van. If he drove by and didn't see it, he'd know I was lying. So thinking fast, I said, "My uncle's here." The second the words left my mouth, I regretted it. It felt like such a weak attempt at a lie, and I was sure he'd see right through it. I tried to sound confident and followed up with, "Why?" trying to put him on the spot. There was another long silence before he simply said, You are home alone. I had no idea what to say. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do next. But before I could come up with anything, he suddenly said, "Never mind," and hung up. I stood there for a second, processing what just happened, and then my gut told me lock the doors. Now. I ran to the front door first, turned the lock, then rushed to the back and did the same. When I made it back to the front window, my heart just about stopped. There was a car in my driveway. Alan was sitting inside, staring straight at my front door.
Holy crap. At first, I was just thinking, okay, their usual delivery guy was not going to be available, and they sent somebody else that turned out to be a creepy stalker guy. Well, I was wrong. It's their usual delivery dude. He's starting to act all suspicious now. Man, at this point, I'll be calling the cops just so they could go confront that dude and see what in the world's he doing.
His windows were up, slightly tinted, but I could see him clearly. He wasn't moving, just sitting there, watching. Then the house phone started ringing again. I didn't answer it. I just stood there, staring at his car, my mind running through every possible worst-case scenario. What if he got out? What if he tried to come in? I was alone, a 14-year-old girl in a tiny apartment, and the only thing standing between me and this creep was a couple of locked doors. I started planning. If he so much as stepped out of that car, I was grabbing a knife from the kitchen. 5 minutes passed. The phone rang one more time, and I still didn't pick up. Then, just as suddenly as he arrived, Alan put the car in reverse and sped off down the street. That's when I finally grabbed the phone and dialed 911. I wasn't even scared of Alan at that moment. I was more afraid of how my dad was going to react. Growing up, my dad had a complicated history with the police, and I was always taught that if I ever had a problem, he'd handle it. But I knew this was way out of my league. By the time the police got there, Alan was long gone. They took my statement and had me go next door to my neighbor's house while they headed to the restaurant to talk to Alan. When they finally got back, they told me that Alan had played the whole thing off as a misunderstanding. He claimed he thought we had placed an order and was just trying to reach an adult in the house. His mother even backed him up, saying it was just a mistake. The cops told them that Alan was no longer allowed to deliver food to my house and that he needed to stay away from me. But let me tell you, Alan's real punishment didn't come from the cops. It came from my dad. When my dad got home and I told him what happened, I'd never seen him that angry before. He immediately picked up the phone and called the restaurant. First, he spoke to the owner, Alan's mom. Then somehow, he convinced her to put Alan on the phone. And let me tell you, what followed was one of the most glorious one-sided conversations I have ever witnessed. My dad was furious. He went into full-on macho protective dad mode, and the insults that came out of his mouth were unlike anything I had ever heard, even as a middle schooler who had spent years learning every creative insult imaginable. I was supposed to be terrified, but honestly, I was biting into a pillow, trying not to laugh. At one point, I heard my dad yell, "What the hell were you thinking driving over here?" And I guess Alan must have given him some excuse about being lonely because my dad lost it. We never ordered from that Chinese place again.
I wouldn't blame you. But I'm mad that the cops believe that whole statement that checking to make sure they didn't order anything. I'll be calling BS right there. I hate to even think about it because if she saw him coming in to the apartment, he probably would have ended up doing some nasty stuff to her. But thank God she did not answer the phone and he drove off like he just didn't have a care in the world now anymore. I know that boy's mother would be scolding him too because it's going to make her food company look bad for having a potential predator hired on. All right, let's get to story number 4.
Let me tell you a weird little story from when I was a kid. It's not the scariest thing that's ever happened to me, but looking back, it was definitely unsettling, especially for my mom. This was back when I was around 4 years old, and my neighborhood had this food delivery service that sold frozen meals and meats door to door. It was super popular, especially with busy parents and elderly folks who didn't want to go grocery shopping as often. My mom loved the convenience of it, and my twin sister and I, we loved any excuse to run to the door and talk to new people. There were a few different delivery people, and most of them were totally normal. There was a no nonsense woman who just wanted to get her job done, a super friendly guy who adored our little terrier. And then there was this one guy, let's call him CDG, creepy delivery guy. He was in his 40s, well spoken, clean shaven, and always up for a chat. His favorite topic? His daughter, who was supposedly around my age. He would go on and on about her. And while my mom thought it was a little strange how much he talked about his kid to two 4-year-olds, she didn't think too much of it. But something about him rubbed her the wrong way. Nothing she could put her finger on at the time. Just a gut feeling. Then, one day, CDG politely asked my mom if he could use our bathroom. He said he'd been on shift for hours and really had to go. She hesitated, but she didn't want to be rude, so she let him in. He was in there forever. When he finally came out, he handed over our order like nothing was weird, and my mom just shook it off. But then it happened again. The alternating delivery drivers stopped coming, and it was just him, every single time. And every time he showed up, he asked to use the bathroom. After a while, he didn't even ask anymore. He just headed straight for it. My mom was getting more and more uncomfortable, but she was too polite to say no. She kept telling herself that if something was really wrong, she'd know.
Something is really wrong if the delivery guy keeps going to your bathroom. He's either got real bad diarrhea problems or he's probably sticking something in your food and you don't even know it. Because that's kind of weird that the delivery guy just don't hand you the food right then and there and then go to the bathroom. And it makes you wonder why is they not getting any other delivery drivers picking up their food instead of this guy. So strange and weird.
And then came the moment that made everything click. One day, CDG was standing in our kitchen, chatting as usual, when he started telling my mom this bizarrely detailed story about how his daughter had gotten an infection. Apparently, she had wiped back to front after going to the bathroom, and he wanted to make sure my sister and I didn't make the same mistake. My mom was already weirded out, but then, while grinning at us, he straight up offered to show us how to wipe properly so we wouldn't get an infection too. That was it. That was the moment my mom finally snapped out of her politeness. She shut him down immediately. After that, she stopped answering the door when he came by. And if we saw his truck in the neighborhood, we knew to stay inside. And of course, CDG didn't take that well. He would glare at our house every time he drove by. But my mom didn't care. She wasn't letting him anywhere near us again. And then we found out the cherry on top. He didn't actually have a daughter. That whole story? Completely made up.
Thank you, Mom. If she did not get out of her politeness phase in front of that guy, he would have just kept coming over, acting like he was an old friend, and keep talking weird stuff to him. But yeah, who would talk about a rash on child's butt? I mean, that's just sickening. I mean, kids and grown-ups will get rashes anywhere. The fact that he did not even have a kid is more disturbing because that just gives you all alarm bells. And he's probably a child peto, if you know what I mean. Ugh. Just even saying that makes my tongue go sour. Ugh. At that point, I'll be calling the cops and letting them know about this guy. And see if they can get him arrested and get him off the streets. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Midnight Terrors content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I said that's a wrap, and have a nice day, y'all.